Are you already living in abundance? One of the easiest traps to fall into is believing that abundance is always somewhere in the future. Just a little more money, a little more success, a little more growth, a little more of something we don't yet have. The challenge isn't that these thoughts take up our time. The challenge is that they quietly reinforce a belief, I don't have enough. And when that belief becomes habitual, it begins to influence the way we think, feel, and act. This is particularly common in business. We're constantly encouraged to expand, find the next strategy, learn the next skill, buy the next tool, increase revenue, scale bigger. But before we talk about expansion, let's establish something important. What does abundance actually mean? At its simplest, abundance means having more than you need. So let's bring this back to reality. If you have a roof over your head, food in your kitchen, the resources you need to get through today, and even a little left over beyond your immediate needs, then there is already abundance present in your life. That isn't positive thinking. It's simply an observation, and clarity begins with seeing what is true. One of the most powerful ways to break through confusion is to look for evidence, not opinions, not fears, not projections, evidence. What is actually true right now? If you stop for a moment and look carefully, you may discover that many of the experiences you're seeking are already present. Safety, comfort, freedom, connection, purpose, creativity. The mind often rushes past these things because it's focused on what's missing. But life is constantly responding to what we recognize as real. This is why gratitude can be so powerful. Not because gratitude magically changes the world, but because it helps us acknowledge what already exists. Each day, take a moment to notice the experiences you value most. A safe place to live, food you enjoy, clean water, fresh air, meaningful relationships, transportation, opportunities to learn, the ability to express yourself. As you recognize these things, you're grounding yourself in reality rather than lack. I once worked with a business owner who was deeply frustrated by his level of income. He was convinced he needed his business to expand. So I asked him a simple question. What does your ideal day look like? Without hesitation, he described it. He wakes up naturally, has coffee with his wife, checks whether anything urgent needs his attention, books a round of golf, works on projects he enjoys, goes to the gym, returns to work, spends the evening learning about new developments in AI, then eventually heads to bed. When he'd finished describing the day, I asked, "Do you currently have enough money for that day to happen?" He paused, then smiled. "Well, yes." He immediately followed it with, "But it's natural to want to expand." And he's right. Growth is natural. There is nothing wrong with wanting more, but I wanted him to look deeper, so I asked him what would change if he suddenly earned another $1 million a year. He thought about it. Perhaps he'd buy a luxury car. But when I asked where he'd drive it, he laughed. Probably to the golf course. Would he move house? Not really. He loved where he lived. Would he travel more? No, I've done plenty of traveling. Would he want to hire another 10 employees? Just the thought exhausted him. What gradually became clear was that most of the experiences that truly mattered to him were already present. He already had freedom. He already had safety. He already had meaningful work. He already had time with the people he loved. He already had space to pursue his interests. In many ways, he was already living the life he wanted. The frustration wasn't coming from reality. It was coming from the idea that he should want something different. As we talked, I watched his whole expression soften. He stopped looking at his life through the lens of what was missing and started recognizing what was already there. Not perfectly, but genuinely. And that shift changed everything. Because gratitude isn't about settling. It isn't about giving up on growth. It's about recognizing the abundance that already exists, so that any future expansion comes from inspiration rather than lack. The truth is, most people are far more capable of creating what matters to them than they realize. Look carefully at your own life. Many of the things you once dreamed about may already be here. The relationships, the opportunities, the experiences, the freedoms, the comforts, the things that genuinely matter. And when you begin to recognize that truth, something interesting happens. You stop chasing abundance and you start noticing it. From that place, growth becomes much easier. Because you're no longer expanding from the belief that you are missing something. You're expanding from the recognition that life is already working,